Hello and welcome to ETCFO Finance Talkie. I'm Vartika Rawat, and today we have a very special guest with us. The first Indian to be on the leadership team of the World Bank, Anshula Kant. Anshula Kant is a small town Roorkee girl whose first love was economics. She pursued the same in top colleges of Delhi University. But with not many job offers associated with economics at that time, she found her career match at the State Bank of India. She organically grew in the largest public sector bank of India and became the group CFO and eventually the managing director. She was leading the finance function of the State Bank of India during the time of historic demonetization. Today, after her consistent hard gaining almost 4 decades of extensive experience, she is now the group CFO and MD of the World Bank. In one of her interactions with ET, she said, like most women who have reached great heights in their career, there comes a time when the question arises whether every sacrifice was worth it. Let us find out the answer to this and more from the woman in the finance who made it to the top. Welcome on the show, Ms. Kant.
Hi, thank you, Vartika, for inviting me.
And you know what? Thank you so much for doing this with us because we've been meaning to do such interviews with the women who've reached to the top, and it's something in the line of what our women CFO in India Inc. would also be looking forward to. So starting with my first question, what does it mean to make it to the top?
So, Vartika, I think for me, it's been as much about the journey to this place where I am today, as much as it is to where I've reached, actually, So all along those, I think now it's almost 40 years, 38 years of when I started working, since when I started working, it's been about adding value every step of the way during that journey. So, when you're young, when you're at more junior levels or middle management levels, the improvements, the value add you can bring, these are small changes, small things, but they give you a lot of immediate sense of satisfaction and job satisfaction. And that sort of keeps you going and encourages you to move ahead. Once you reach a more senior level where I am today, I think it's about, you can take decisions which have bigger impacts. You can make policies, change frameworks which have a more permanent, more, like I said, more impact. But, the quick sense of satisfaction you get when you're young, because you can see the impact of what you're doing immediately. Now it takes more time. It takes more effort to make these changes. But let me also add that, in this position, especially once you become senior as a woman, I think it's really important to continue to remember that there are so many women out there who in many ways don't have a level playing field to reach these positions. So it's important for women in positions, professional women, to make sure that, and I try to do that we continue to support, to sustain their careers, to give enough to their careers so that they can, reach important positions. And also, I think it's also a little bit about role models. I think when you look at senior women, I did that too when I was younger. When you see them and you believe, then you sort of start believing that you can do it. It's possible to do it.
Very pertinent point that you've highlighted here is, many women don't get a level playing field. And then you added saying that, there is a lack of women role models that, in many of the discussions that we've done with Indian women CFOs, this discussion has many a times come to surface. Let me ask you this question that, how would you motivate or uh, mentor women in finance to not quit or continue to live, enjoy, work smart, fight, and find success in their journey to the top?
I think it's a little bit, Vartika, also about each person's upbringing, how you've grown up as an individual, how much of a fighter you are. And let me say this, it's not just the women who have to fight, it's the men who have to fight too to make a success. Actually, any human being, to make a success of what they are doing, you have to fight your way forward and way up. So I think it's about not quitting. There are more challenges definitely in the way of women. But I also believe that women are made to do bigger and better things in many ways. So I'm 100% confident that we can multitask better than the men. I know the men listening in will get a little perturbed by this, but the fact is that we can multitask better. We bring a lot to the table. I think it's also about self-confidence. It's about belief in yourself. It's about not giving up. And I remember when my daughter was young, and for her and for me, and that's what I wanted to inculcate in her mind, that you have to be financially independent. You have to stand on your own feet. There are no choices here. There is no choice in front of you that you cannot work, you cannot be financially independent, because that leads to personal freedom, that leads to personal space, that leads to personal self-respect, and that leads to your ability to live as an independent, confident human being. So that is something I grew up with, and I made sure my daughter grew up with the same belief. I think it starts from there. And then, of course, I can talk a lot about what is really needed. What are the challenges that stand in the way of women? And these are real challenges which women face more than men, I think.
So, one advice that you would give to the women leaders is to not give up in their journey.
Not give up, not give up. And sometimes when you think a lot and you think ahead and you think the problems are so challenging, so insurmountable, but I found that solutions emerge as you start to go ahead, and you always get a helping hand, whether it's from a colleague, whether it's from a friend, whether it's from a family member. You find solutions as you go along the way. And of course, Vartika, for women, it is hugely about childcare. I think that is something which women face all the time, everywhere, and it sort of cuts across countries. Whether you're in a developed world, you are in a developing economy, it's the same challenge everywhere, I think, about childcare. No, I was just saying that, for women to be able to sustain their careers and then go up the ladder, because the demands on your time increase as you become more senior. And, there are trade-offs. There are no easy decisions to be made here, but there are trade-offs. But so good quality, accessible childcare becomes of prime importance here in this situation.
Interesting point. And why I asked this particular question to you is because we were talking about role models, and secondly because as per a study, 1 in 10 women reach to the top in India Inc. And women drop out of talent pipeline at mid to senior level positions. And though there are 3 women for every 10 employees in India Inc., but only uh, one makes it to the leadership team of 10. So, since you are one of those 10% of the women who made it, what would you say differentiated your climb to the top?
That's a hard one to answer, because I don't think there was a big differentiation. It was about, some of it is luck, it's fate, it's luck. I was born and I grew up in a family, Vartika, where I think I was 16 years old or 18 by the time I realized I'm a girl and I'm not a boy. We were all children in the family, completely equally treated, similarly treated. My parents had as much expectations of me to study hard, to do well, to perform, as they did of my brothers. So it begins from there, the family atmosphere. And that's why I said I think that it's equally important for the men to be aware of this, because it is the men and the women, the parents, the sisters and the brothers, who create this atmosphere where there is equity in treatment of children. And education is the next big thing. Again, I came from a middle class household, so much emphasis on education, equally so for the girls, equally so for the boys. So you had to study hard, you had to try and do your best and do well. So it's about the right attitude, it's about education, it's about skills. And then, of course, as you find the job opportunities you're looking for, in I started my career almost 4 decades ago. At that time, in smaller cities, childcare or professional childcare was not available at all. You know how it is in India, and uh, uh, you know uh, the dependence was very huge on family and friends. So then it becomes a luck of the draw. Do you have supportive families? If you do, if you're lucky, and you can then continue with your career in a fearless manner, let me put it this way. So I was lucky. I lucked out both with my own parents and with my husband and my husband's family, extremely supportive of my career, always there to support. So for me, the trade-offs were not so huge, in the sense I didn't have to give up a family on a family, or having children. But having said that, I think if you come to this day and age where things are much more available for supporting women in their careers in India, in larger cities, even in smaller cities, I think clearly it is the education, it is the attitude, it is also about providing childcare facilities. It is also, again, it was a little bit of a struggle for me, again, about 25-30 years ago. For instance, safe transport. Now, I was the branch manager of a small branch, few small branches in rural semi-urban areas. There was always a element of anxiety when I used to return back from office in the evening till I reached home in the evening. So safe transport, I think, these are things which are, they sound simple, but they are very critical in us continuing to pursue our careers without any hindrance, I think.
It's a very important point that you've raised, and I will get back to that point in a larger question that I have, that I've thought that I'll ask you. But before that, you told that sometimes it's luck, and you being a person who's raised in Roorkee, then you went to Varanasi when you got married, and then you were working in rural areas. You went to Singapore also, and then you were traveling around the globe when you in your stint in SBI as well. So what we would like to understand from you is, what were your unique challenges as a leader in the making, that you would like to share with our community here.
Vartika, I think most of us women face similar challenges. These challenges are not unique to me. It is of course about, again, it's at the cost of repetition. It's about who will bring up my children. Are they being looked after? Are they being taken care of? Is there someone there for them when they come back from school? These are the agonies that we all go through, I think, as working women. Other than that, I think it is also about, how should I put it? For women, I think it's really, really important to have the confidence in their own ability. I think, and I've seen this time and again throughout my career, women have this great skill of bringing consensus around the table. They are able to get decisions made. They are able to optimize. Often they're not perfectionists. In my case, for instance, if I get 80% of what I wanted or what we are trying to achieve together as a team, that's good enough. So, building consensus, building good teams, I think women bring so much to the table that it is great for, of course, for the woman who's working. Also, there is a great upside for the household. So, Vartika, you may think there are trade-offs about, I'm not there at home to look after my children. But the fact is, your children become more independent. They are self-confident human beings. My son learned that he has to treat women right? Because he was observing this in his own house, that women can occupy positions of power. They can occupy positions of authority. So he learned, my daughter, of course, learned, because, so they learn by example. So it's good for the household. It's good for the community. It's good for corporates, I think, and for organizations. That's really important, that 100% male-driven organization will miss out on a lot of qualities, abilities, and special skills which women bring to the table. I'm pretty sure that even corporates will find over a period of time that they can, it adds to their bottom line if they have more women in the workplace. economies, definitely, the World Bank has done enough research about this, that, significant additions to GDP can be added if women were to be fully employed as much as men, or women were to be, starting their own businesses or growing their own businesses. So I think, the case for women being fully and equally included in the workplace, in self-employment and business spaces, I think it's now undisputed. So it is for us all, as governments, as economies, as people in authority, to work and make sure that we create an environment and provide the infrastructure. So it's also about infrastructure, right? Childcare, safe transport, safe working places. And you think about it, I remember at one point I had a team which was largely made of women many years ago. It was a challenge sometimes because these were young women, and many of them went on maternity leave. So every other person used to be on leave through that 1 year. And for me, as that small team leader, it was a challenge. How do I get my work done? So it can become frustrating. So you don't want a team leader in that position to get frustrated. So it is up to those organizations to make sure that those teams can work efficiently. Maybe if they have predominance of women and a lot of them go on leave, provide some additional 1 or 2 people who can, carry the load, because ultimately in the medium term and in the long term, I think also it pays organizations to make sure that the women continue to work and grow and succeed in the organization.
So we talk about men and women having equal opportunities. So we would want to ask you that, giving equal opportunity, is that enough? And while competency plays an important part in anyone's leadership journey, what counts as equity for women?
So, Vartika, I wish we were in a place where giving equal opportunity was enough, but I don't think we are in that place yet. We need to do a little more, going beyond, making sure that there is technically a level playing field. We talked a little bit about what more is needed in terms of childcare, safe transport, etc. And let me add a little bit to that in terms of the legal situation globally. We recently issued our Women Business and Law report, which found that women, on an average across the world, have 77% of legal rights as men do. So, for instance, you can't take it for granted that women will get equal pay for equal job. You cannot take it for granted that in many countries, not many countries, let me say, in a few countries, women don't have equal rights to own property, to own assets, which makes it that much more challenging for them to take business loans or housing loans, for instance. So, there are multiple things which, of course, need to be done even to create the equal opportunities. But as you very rightly asked, going beyond creating the equal opportunities, it is also about making sure that the girl child, for instance, you may have open schools in the neighborhood, but the girl child gets to school. She has equal opportunity, but equal, how should I say it, equal incentive and equal facilitation to go to school every day. Her parents should tell her, you have to go to school every day, you have to study. This is your mission in life. As an 8-year-old child, you have to study, right? So that kind of attitude changes, the changes in social values. I think that is something which we as individuals have to do. Plus, I think organization also need to, keep track of where they are on gender parity, gender equality, gender equity. For instance, at the World Bank Group, we have 54% women in the workforce. So, for every hire that we do, for every promotion that we do, it is not at the cost or expense of quality. Like you said, competence is, of course, of the primary importance. But everything else being equal, we would like to make sure that women have equal opportunities and equal considerations when we are hiring and promoting people. So I think that awareness, that consciousness that women need some support. The other is, for instance, during childbearing years, So if I'm away on maternity leave for 6 months, having a child, if organizations can sort of remain engaged with women, or if they take say leave without pay for a couple of years to bring up the children, or they want to look after somebody or do something, can organizations and companies remain engaged with these women, do an outreach program so that when they come back after 2 years, make it easy for them to get onboarded back into the corporate world that much more easily. And it is also about attitudes and zero tolerance within organizations for attitudes which discourage women or give the perception that women do not contribute enough to the workplace. So I think it's, again, for instance, paternity leave. Now, I don't know how many organizations actually have paternity leave, but these days men and women can equally look after the children, right, after childbirth. In the World Bank Group, we have something called paternity leave. Both men and women have that opportunity. So these are small things for the organizations to do, but they are big things in the lives of working women. I think we have to have that awareness and consciousness every step of the way, how to make sure that women don't drop off the race. And typically that happens at the middle management level. And that's when all your responsibilities are at the highest, personal responsibilities, work-related responsibilities. The competition is very fierce in the workplace.
Right.
So I think we need to give them a atmosphere or an environment in which they can thrive despite the challenges they face.
I think very pertinent examples also you've stated in your response, when you talk about always remaining in touch with the women employee who has gone in maternity leave, outreach programs to be done. And I think many companies do that
Yeah.
in their policies. They have those kind of programs. But extending this equity versus equality debate a little more forward, you know, does that reflect in corporate policies as well? Is one question that you have partly touched upon. So, I would like to ask you that, is there any example of an anecdote that comes to your mind that really made a difference in corporate policy in supporting women?
Vartika, these are such big changes when they happen in corporates and organizations. It is not one anecdote that triggers these changes. I do remember, we had done a quick survey of why women don't take promotions in State Bank of India. This was in Mumbai. And you know what the women told me, that many of the women said, look, it messes up our life completely. We take a promotion, we are in the clerical cadre. If we take a promotion to the officers cadre, we will be transferred all over the place. Here we are living in Mumbai with with our family, with our children. We can't disrupt our life so much. And this is a real concern. So then we tried to see if we can bring about some enabler, some facilitator, at least at the junior level, in terms of the transfer policy for women. But it is not one anecdote. These are big problems that people face, and I think gradually, especially as the joint family system in India has broken out, and you have single unit families, I think increasingly organizations are looking at, and like you said, many organizations have made changes in these policies when they realize the day-to-day problems their employees are facing, women employees, about paternity leave, about remaining engaged when women are away from the workspace. I think it is a fine balance in how much extra and how much you can lean forward in terms of actual policies for women employees beyond what organizations are doing more, because you do not want to disadvantage employees who are not women either. So it has to be a level playing field. And I think many organizations are increasingly realizing the value of their employees, women employees too, and making policies which enable and facilitate women workers.
Anna, what will be one advice that you would like to give to from your wisdom? What would be that advice that you would want to give to these budding decision makers? Something that you think that someone would have told you when you were a budding CXO?
I think this is especially for us, women, the younger women. Uh, when I started my work, there was generally a tendency that my colleagues had lower expectations of me than they had of my male colleagues. They thought, ladki hai, pata nahi kar payegi ya nahi. Whether she'll be able to do this, X, Y, Z, go into the rural areas, do late evenings or late nights or whatever. So, when your expectations of others are low from you, you tend to, live up to those lower expectations, meaning you choose the easy options. You may not opt for challenging assignments. But I think that is the one critical thing for women to keep in mind as they start out their careers, and I wish I'd gotten this advice early on, that never ever opt for the easy option. Go for the difficult, even go for the opportunities that are there, If they are difficult, if there are challenges, you should still go for it, because it's really important as you move up the ladder to be visible, to be seen, so that people know about you. Otherwise, you can get lost in the crowd a little bit. And as a young woman, it is really important as you're moving up the ladder that you need to be visible. Also, I think networking is very critical. Again, that is a little bit of a weak spot for women, but consciously, and I don't really mean that you have to go out every evening to, have a drink with the guys, but you still need to, build your network, build your connections. I think those things are really critical in your success as you move through your journey of your profession.
When you opt for those opportunities, there are mistakes. You're only a human, and you do make mistakes. There are fallouts. So when I ask you that, when we talk about hindsight learnings, which is pure learning that you get from hindsight events, what have been your major fallouts that you were able to recognize, and it changed the course of your journey? What is that hindsight learning?
That's a very difficult one to answer. I think what I've learned along the way, that I have tried to do this to improve myself on this, that, to listen better, to, you sometimes when you're young and brash, you think you know best. But as you work your way through your life, your professional life, you realize and you understand very clearly there is so much value that your colleagues and your friends and your teammates can add. So I think it's really important, and that's an important lesson I learned, that to listen, to take everybody's views on board. Sometimes when you try to make a change, or you want to change a few things in the organization, a policy or something, sometimes what I learned was that it may be okay to accept 80% of what you tried to achieve, rather than push for the last mile of 100% when there is no acceptance in the organization. So it's important to get people's buy-in. That is what I learned over a period of time. Important to get people's buy-in, important to take people along if you want to succeed in what you do. That's what I learned. And along the way, I learned a lot of patience. I used to be very impatient, a little headstrong in my younger days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a good corporate quality. I think in personal life also, if you listen more, you are more of a team player, you can build consensus better, and you can succeed more in things you're trying to do if you are able to take your team along.
Right. Spoken like a leader.
I don't know about that.
So, ma'am, how do you define Anshula Kant, Group CFO and MD of World Bank today?
I don't define myself as that, Vartika. Anshula is what? She's a professional woman, yes, but I'm also a mom, and these days I'm defining myself as a grandmother. Oh, I love my grandkids to death. So I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a partner, and you start out as a sister or a daughter or a brother, whatever. So this is not the one thing that defines me, but it's difficult to say.
Ma'am, what's next for Anshula Kant?
No, I'm still on a huge learning curve at the World Bank. So these last 3 years, last 4 years, actually. And that is another thing which sort of kept me going all these 38 years, all through State Bank of India. And now also that, we used to get these change in assignments every 3 years in SBI. And you were sort of thrown in at the deep end. You were expected to learn and come up to speed very quickly in a new role, in a new job. And for the last 3 years, being at the bank, all through COVID and, then the multiple crises that we've seen, the war in Ukraine and all of that, I think it's been a huge learning for me. So while I was in SBI, my focus was largely India and SBI. But now, there is a global perspective and how we can bring the learnings from one country to another country, how we can help people in these countries. So it's an exciting time for us here. Lot of self-development and learning for me. So I'm enjoying myself. So right now, I don't think of anything else beyond what I'm doing currently.
All right. And ma'am, one last question is, what do you miss about not being in India?
Oh, everything. My home, my garden, the smells of India, the food, and my friends. Yes. Family, Vartika, now we are all over the place. My kids are grown up. They are in their own homes. So, yeah, you miss your country.